Welcome to Story Tales. Please like this video and subscribe to Story Tales. I hope you enjoy the story. Let's begin. The Christmas lights hung around the apartment like tiny judges. Their red and green glow casting shadows across Alden's face as he folded the wrapping paper with perfect corners. Each crease was sharp enough to cut skin. Each piece of tape placed with care that bordered on obsession. The two boxes sat on the coffee table, one small enough to fit in a coat pocket, the other large enough to require both arms. Alden's phone buzzed. He ignored it. Finishing the bow on the larger package, .3 wine bottles stood empty on the kitchen counter. Not from celebration, from silence. His phone buzzed again. This time, he picked it up. "Safe trip. Don't stay too long," he typed to Nessa. The reply came almost instantly. "Thanks for existing. Don't come." Alden placed the phone screen down on the table. He'd paid for that phone, just like he'd paid for everything else. The rent, the utilities, the Christmas tree that twinkled in the corner, waiting for someone who wouldn't be home to enjoy it. The heat kicked on, rattling through the vents. The sound echoed in the empty apartment. Alden walked to the window. Outside, snow was starting to fall. Spokane in December looked like a postcard, perfect and cold and distant. Like his marriage, he picked up his glass of whiskey and drained it. She wasn't at her sister's. He knew that now. Nessa's laugh cut across the crowded living room as she leaned into Cam, her hand resting on his chest. The party hummed around them, music pounding, drinks flowing, everyone just a little too loud. "So he just stays there?" a woman asked, her eyebrows raised in disbelief. "While you figure things out." "What can I say?" Cam answered before Nessa could. "The guy's like a weird squatter who doesn't know when to leave." Nessa didn't correct him. She smiled and took another sip of her drink. The lie hung in the air, and she let it float there undisturbed. No one at this party knew that Alden paid for everything. No one knew that the credit card she'd just used to buy another round belonged to him. No one knew that the figuring things out was just an excuse to have both a stable provider and an exciting lover. "Why don't you just kick him out?" the woman asked, leaning closer. Her breath smelled like expensive vodka. Nessa shrugged, her eyes moving away from the woman's gaze. "It's complicated." But it wasn't. It was simple. Alden provided. Cam excited. And she took and took and took. "Let's get out of here," Cam whispered in her ear. "My place." His place. A studio apartment with a mattress on the floor and posters taped to the walls like a college dorm. But he made her feel alive. Made her feel seen in ways Alden never had. Least, that's what she told herself. The night had grown deeper when Alden stepped out onto the balcony. The snow was coming down harder now, fat flakes that melted on his skin. The cold air stung his lungs, but he welcomed it. Feeling anything was better than the hollow space that had opened inside him. From below, he heard voices. Marlene, his elderly neighbor, was on her porch, her phone held away from her ear as an angry voice spilled out. "I'm not your ATM, Jason," she said, her voice firm despite the slight tremor in it. "You only call when you need something. That's not how this works." The voice on the other end grew louder. Alden couldn't make out the words, but the tone was clear. Entitlement, anger, manipulation. "Stop," Marlene said. "Just stop. I'm done being used. Stop letting people waste your life, Jason. And stop letting yourself waste mine." She hung up and stood there, shoulders slumped. Then she looked up and saw Alden watching. Their eyes met. No embarrassment, no apology, just recognition of shared pain. Marlene nodded once and went inside. Alden stayed on the balcony until his fingers grew numb. The words echoed in his head. Stop letting people waste your life. When he went back inside, he didn't go to bed. He went to his laptop and opened it. The blue light illuminated his face as he began to type. Credit card statements, bank records, text messages he'd downloaded from the cloud backup he'd set up for Nessa's phone when she couldn't figure out how to do it herself. By morning, he had a plan. His first stop, the hardware store for new locks. Christmas morning arrived with the muted light of a snow-covered sun. Alden hadn't slept. He'd changed the locks, packed Nessa's things into boxes, placed 2 special packages outside the door, but he sat in the kitchen, waiting when he heard the laughter. Nessa's voice first, then Cam's. They weren't trying to be quiet. The key in the lock. The jiggling of the doorknob when it didn't work. Then Nessa's confused voice. What the hell? Did you change the locks? Cam asked. No, Nessa said, her voice sharper now. Alden? Alden, open the door. Knocking. Then pounding. Then Nessa's voice again, higher this time. Panic creeping in. Alden, I know you're in there. Open this door right now. Alden's phone buzzed with her calls. He didn't answer. There's some boxes here, Cam said. Silence. Then Nessa spoke again, her voice different. Is one of them moving? Alden stood up and walked to the window. He pulled back the curtain just enough to see them. Nessa in her party dress from the night before, makeup smudged. Cam looking hungover and irritated, both staring at the boxes that he let the curtain fall back into place, and waited. Nessa knelt beside the boxes, confusion turning to dread in her stomach. The smaller one had her name written on it in Alden's neat handwriting. The larger one had no name, but something inside it shifted. What is this? Cam asked, stepping back. Is this some kind of weird joke? Nessa didn't answer. She opened the smaller box first. Inside was a photo album. Not the kind with family pictures or vacation memories. This one was filled with receipts. Hundreds of them. Every bill Alden had paid for years. Rent, utilities, groceries, her personal trainer, her art classes that she'd quit after 2 sessions, her credit card statements. Between the pages of receipts were photographs. Alden sitting alone at restaurants on his birthdays while her texts explaining she was working late appeared beside the images. Alden sleeping on the couch while timestamp data showed she was across town. And then, on the final page, a photo of her and Cam. Outside his apartment. Kissing. From 2 weeks, A-G-O to T the bottom. Alden had written in the same neat handwriting. Now the world knows. Merry Christmas. Cold fear washed through her. The world, her phone dinged. Then again, and again, messages pouring in. She fumbled to unlock it as Cam shifted nervously beside her. Her family group chat exploded with screenshots. Text between her and Cam. Bank records showing Alden paid for everything. Photos of her and Cam together with dates and times. What's happening? Cam asked, his voice tense. Nessa couldn't answer. Her phone kept buzzing as more messages came in. From her sister, her parents, her church group, former colleagues, everyone. The second box moved again. She turned to it, almost afraid to open it. But she did. Cam's dog looked up at her, a note tied to its collar. Cam had left it at the vet 3 days ago, claiming he couldn't afford the bill. Alden had paid it. Of course he had. She unfolded the note. You forgot your responsibility. Again, her phone buzzed once more. Her mother, don't call us. Don't come home. You made your choices. Nessa looked up at the apartment window, just in time to see the curtain fall back into place that Toby's office smelled like coffee and microwave popcorn. He looked up as Alden entered, his usual smile fading as he saw Alden's face. You look like hell, Toby said, leaning back in his chair. What happened? I changed the locks, Alden replied, sitting down across from him. This morning, Toby's eyes widened. You found proof. Alden nodded. He'd told Toby his suspicions weeks ago, after finding the first clues of Nessa's affair. The odd charges on her credit card, the late nights, the text messages that didn't make sense. What did she do? Toby asked. Exactly what I expected, Alden said. She showed up with him. Tried to get in. Couldn't. And then she found what I left her. Alden explained the boxes, the evidence, the mass message he'd scheduled to send to everyone in Nessa's life. Toby let out a low whistle. Cold-blooded man, but she deserved it. He paused, studying Alden's face. You okay? Alden thought about the question. Was he okay? No, but he wasn't broken either. I will be, he said. Toby nodded. That's all any of us can ask for. He pulled open a drawer and took out a flask. Drink. It's 10 in the morning, Alden said. And you just nuked your cheating wife's life. If that's not flask-worthy, I don't know what is. Alden almost smiled. Almost. Maybe later. The offer stands, Toby said, putting the flask away. And hey, you need a place to crash. My couch is yours. I'm not leaving my apartment, Alden said. She is. The first week after Christmas passed in a blur. Alden took time off work. He needed space to think, to process, to plan his next steps that he had expected Nessa to fight back somehow, to try to turn the narrative, to make him the villain. But the evidence he'd gathered was too damning, too complete. There was no room for her to maneuver. He was in the kitchen making coffee when the knock came at his door. Not Nessa's frantic pounding. Something gentler. Marlene stood in the hallway, a container in her hands. "I made too much soup," she said, though they both knew it was a lie. "Thought you might want some." Alden took the container. "Thank you." Marlene didn't leave. She looked past him into the apartment, her eyes taking in the changes. The photos of Nessa were gone. The colorful throw pillows she'd insisted on. The artwork she claimed to love. "I heard the commotion on Christmas," Marlene said. "Walls are thin in this building." Alden nodded. No point denying it. "Good for you," she said, surprising him. "My first husband cheated. I stayed with him for 10 more years. Wasted decade of my life." "I'm sorry," Alden said. Marlene shrugged. "Don't be. I learned eventually." She turned to leave, then paused. "Soup's better the second day. And if you need to talk, I'm just downstairs." As she walked away, Alden realized it was the first real conversation he'd had with her in the 3 years he'd lived in the building. Stop letting people waste your life that he closed the door and went back to his coffee. It tasted different somehow. Better point 3 weeks after Christmas, Alden saw Nessa outside the apartment. He was returning from work, and she was standing in the snow, looking up at the windows. She looked different, smaller somehow, less polished. She saw him and straightened up. "Alden, please, can we talk?" He walked past her to the building in trance. "Alden, I'm sorry. I made a mistake." He turned to face her. "A mistake is forgetting to pay a bill. A mistake is burning dinner. What you did wasn't a mistake. It was a choice. A series of choices." "I know," she said, her voice breaking. "But we could try." "There is no we anymore," Alden said. The words felt good to say. Liberating. "There's you, and there's me, and I'm done with you." "Where am I supposed to go?" she asked, tears falling now. "My family won't talk to me. My friends, everyone knows." "That sounds like your problem," Alden replied. He unlocked the door to the building. "Goodbye, Nessa." As he closed the door behind him, he saw her still standing there, snow falling around her. He felt nothing. No satisfaction. No pain. Just nothing that he went upstairs to his apartment, closed the curtains, and warmed up the last of Marlene's soup. The coffee shop was busy, the morning rush in full swing. Alden waited in line, scrolling through emails on his phone. Work had become a refuge. Numbers made sense. Systems could be fixed. People were trickier. Medium black coffee, right? He looked up. The barista, her name tag read Raya, smiled at him. "Yes," he said, surprised she remembered. "You come in every Tuesday and Thursday at 7:45, she said, already preparing his order. "Creatures of habit are my specialty." Alden handed her his card. "Observant. Part of the job," she said. "Plus, I'm a psych major. People are fascinating." She handed him his coffee. On the cup, instead of his name, she'd drawn a small, smiley face. "Have a good day," she said, and he wasn't sure if it was the usual customer service line or if she meant it. "You too," he replied. As he turned to leave, she spoke again. "Hey, if you ever want to try something different, the lavender latte is pretty great. Just saying." Alden looked back at her. She was already helping the next customer, but there was something about her offer that stayed with him. A small kindness. A tiny opening to something new. He took a sip of his coffee and headed to work. Alden stared at the email in his inbox, his finger hovering over the delete button. From Nessa Lee. Subject, "Please read this." He didn't open it. Instead, he clicked delete and watched it disappear. 4 weeks had passed since Christmas morning. 4 weeks of rebuilding, of reclaiming his space, his time, his life. His phone buzzed. A text from Toby. "Drinks tonight? New place downtown. My treat." Alden typed back, "Sure." 7 work. "Perfect," Toby replied. "You can tell me all about the mystery barista you're not talking about." Alden almost smiled. Toby had been with him at the coffee shop last week when Raya had remembered not just his order, but a conversation they'd had about books. Toby hadn't let him hear the end of it. His computer dinged. Another email. This one from his lawyer. The paperwork was ready. All he needed to do was sign. Alden stood up from his desk and grabbed his coat. The lawyer's office was only a 10-minute walk. 10 minutes closer to freedom. You're doing what? Cam asked, his voice rising. A lawsuit? For what? Nessa sat on the edge of his mattress. The letter from Alden's lawyer crumpled in her hand. Intentional emotional distress. He's suing me. That's insane, Cam said, pacing the small studio apartment. What does he want? Money? You don't have any money. He knows that, Nessa said quietly. He doesn't want money. Then what? He wants everything else. My name removed from the lease. My things put into storage at my expense. And she swallowed hard. A restraining order. Cam stopped pacing. A restraining order? That's crazy. You didn't do anything to him. Nessa looked up at him, reality finally setting in. Yes, I did. We did. Oh, come on, Cam said, rolling his eyes. So we had some fun. It's not like we killed anyone. We destroyed his trust, Nessa said. We lied to him. I lied to him. For months. And now he's trying to destroy you back, Cam said. Don't let him. Fight this. With what? Nessa asked, standing up. With what money? What lawyer? What case? He has everything documented. Every lie. Every night I wasn't where I said I was. Every dollar he spent while I was with you. So what? You're just going to roll over? Let him win. He already won, Nessa said. The moment I decided to lie, instead of just ending things properly, he won. Cam's expression changed, hardened. You sound pathetic. Where's the Nessa who used to light up the room? The one who knew how to have fun? She's gone, Nessa said. She disappeared when everyone in her life found out who she really was. The bar was crowded, but Toby had secured them a table in the corner. He raised his beer as Alden approached. To freedom, Toby said. Alden clinked his glass against Toby's. Not quite yet, but soon. How'd it go with the lawyer? As expected, Alden said. The lawsuit is solid. She doesn't have a leg to stand on. Good, Toby said. She deserves whatever she gets. He took a sip of his beer. You hear anything from her? Emails. Texts. I delete them all, Alden said. There's nothing to talk about. That's my boy, Toby said with approval. No forgiveness for the unworthy. Alden looked down at his drink. Was that who he was now? Someone incapable of forgiveness? He wasn't sure he recognized himself sometimes. Enough about her, Toby said, changing the subject. Tell me about the barista. There's nothing to tell, Alden replied. She makes my coffee. That's it. That's not what I saw, Toby said. She remembered what book you were reading. Asked if you liked the ending. She's observant. She's interested, Toby countered. And from the way you can't stop thinking about her. So are you. I'm not ready for that, Alden said. Maybe not, Toby agreed. But someday you will be. And when that day comes, I'm going to say I told you so loud they'll hear it in Montana. Alden shook his head, but there was almost a smile on his face. Almost. The courthouse was quiet on Monday morning. Alden sat on one side of the room, his lawyer beside him. Nessa sat on the other, alone. No lawyer. No Cam. Just her in a dress that looked like it had seen better days. The judge reviewed the documents, her expression giving nothing away. When she looked up, her eyes moved between Alden and Nessa. Mr. Kincaid, she said, your evidence is compelling. Documentation of financial abuse, emotional manipulation, and a pattern of deceptive behavior. She turned to Nessa. Ms. Lee, do you have anything to say in your defense? Nessa stood, her hands shaking. No, Your Honor. Everything in those documents is true. The judge raised an eyebrow, clearly surprised by the admission. I see. And Mr. Kincaid's requests removal from the lease, storage of belongings, and the restraining order. Do you oppose any of these? No, Your Honor, Nessa said, her voice small. Very well, the judge said. Given the evidence and the defendant's admission, I'm granting all the requested terms. Ms. Lee, you will have 48 hours to remove any personal belongings not already in storage from the premises. After that, you are not to come within 500 feet of Mr. Kincaid or his residence. Is that clear? Yes, Your Honor, Nessa said. Mr. Kincaid, the judge continued, while I understand the pain caused by betrayal, I hope you find a way to move forward that brings you peace. She struck her gavel. Case closed. Outside the courthouse, Alden watched as Nessa walked away, shoulders slumped. He felt no victory, no joy, just a hollow sense that something was finished. His lawyer patted him on the shoulder. Congratulations. You got everything you asked for. Yes, Alden said. I did. But standing there, watching Nessa disappear around the corner, he wasn't sure what exactly he had won. The apartment felt different when Alden returned from work that evening. Emptier, but not in a bad way. Lighter, as if a weight had been lifted not just from him, but from the space itself, that a knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. He opened it to find Raya standing there, a nervous smile on her face. Hi, she said. I locked myself out of my apartment. I called the building manager, but he won't be here for an hour, and I was wondering if I could wait here? If that's not weird, which it probably is. Sorry, I can wait in the hall. It's fine, Alden said, stepping back to let her in. You can wait here. Thanks, Raya said, her relief evident. I feel so stupid. I never forget my keys. Everyone forgets sometimes, Alden said, closing the door. Raya looked around the apartment, her eyes taking in the minimalist decor. Nice place. Simple. Clean. It's a work in progress, Alden admitted. The best things usually are, Raya said. She sat down on the edge of a chair, clearly trying not to take up too much space. I don't want to intrude. I know we don't really know each other, even though you're my favorite regular. I am, Alden asked, surprised. Of course, Raya said. You're polite. You tip well, and you actually make eye contact, which is rarer than you'd think. Alden wasn't sure what to say to that. Would you like something to drink? Water? Coffee. Water would be great, Raya said. And maybe, could I ask you something kind of personal? Alden tensed but nodded. Are you okay? Raya asked. It's just I've noticed a change in you over the past few weeks. You seem, I don't know, different, more present, maybe, but also sadder. Alden handed her a glass of water, considering his answer. I'm going through a divorce, he said finally. It's been challenging. I'm sorry, Raya said, and it sounded genuine. I know how that feels. Well, not marriage, but I was with someone for 3 years. He was, she trailed off, searching for the right word. Unfaithful, Alden guessed. Narcissistic, Raya said. Everything was about him. His needs, his wants, his time. I gave and gave until there was nothing left of me. The description hit too close to home. How did you leave? Alden asked. Badly, Raya admitted with a small laugh. I tried to fix him first, then I tried to fix myself. Finally, I realized the only thing I could fix was the door on my way out. She took a sip of water. It took time to rebuild, but I did. You will too. Before Alden could respond, there was another knock at the door. The building manager. That's my cue, Raya said, standing up. Thanks for the water and the company. Anytime, Alden said, and he meant as she left. Raya turned back one more time. For what it's worth, I think you're doing better than you realize. After she was gone, Alden stood in his apartment, the silence no longer feeling empty, just peaceful. Cam watched the apartment building from his car, anger burning in his chest. 2 months since the Christmas disaster, and everything had fallen apart. Nessa had become a liability. Needy, desperate, not fun anymore. And it was all Alden's fault. He took a swig from the bottle beside him, the whiskey burning his throat. The liquid courage he needed for what came next. Cam checked his pocket. The key he'd borrowed from Nessa before telling her he needed space. The drugs he'd brought as backup, just in case that he got out of the car and walked toward the building, rehearsing what he would say. How he would make Alden pay for ruining everything. For exposing him. For making his life harder. The lock clicked open easily. Too easily. As if someone had wanted him to get in. The hallway was empty as Cam made his way to Alden's door. He tried the key, but it didn't work. Of course, Alden had changed the locks after Christmas. Fine. Plan B. Cam pounded on the door. Alden, open up, you pathetic piece of trash. We need to talk. No response. But Cam knew he was in there. He'd seen the lights on. I'm not leaving until you face me. Cam shouted. Face me like a man. The door opened suddenly, but it wasn't Alden who stood there. It was a middle-aged man Cam had never seen before. Who the hell are you? Cam asked, confused. Toby Raines, The man said, his voice cold. Alden's friend. And you are trespassing. Where's Alden? Cam demanded. I need to talk to him. He doesn't need to talk to you, Toby said, blocking the doorway. From inside the apartment, Alden's voice called out. Let him in, Toby. He came all this way. Might as well hear what he has to say. Toby stepped aside reluctantly, and Cam pushed past him into the apartment. Alden sat at his dining table, calm and collected. But something was off. There was a phone on the table, its screen glowing. What do you want, Cam? Alden asked. I want you to back off, Cam said, the alcohol making his words slur slightly. Stop attacking Nessa. Stop with the lawsuit and the restraining order. Stop trying to ruin our lives. Your lives? Alden repeated. You mean the life you built on lies? On using her for money, while she used me? That life. You think you're so perfect, Cam spat. So moral. But you're just a controlling freak who couldn't handle that his wife needed more than he could give. And you think you're what? Her knight in shining armor. Alden asked, his voice still calm. Tell me, Cam, what exactly do you provide for her? Because from what I've seen, you take just as much as she does. I make her happy, Cam said, which is more than you ever did. Happy? Alden stood now, his composure cracking slightly. Is that why you're here alone? Is that why she's staying with her cousin now, instead of with you? Because she's so happy. Cam lunged forward, grabbing Alden by the shirt. You don't know anything about us. I know everything about you, Alden said, not struggling against Cam's grip. I know you've been living off women like Nessa for years. I know you have no job, no prospects, no future. I know you left your dog at the vet because you couldn't pay the bill. I know you're carrying drugs in your left jacket pocket right now. Cam froze. How did you? The same way I know you're going to leave here in handcuffs, Alden said, nodding toward the phone on the table. Because I've been recording this entire conversation and the police are already on their way. As if on cue, a siren wailed in the distance, growing closer. Cam released Alden and backed away. You set me up. No, Alden said. You set yourself up. I just made sure there were consequences. The pounding on the door came moments later, followed by a voice. Police. Open up. Toby, who had been quietly watching from the corner, opened the door. 2 officers entered, their expressions serious. That's him, Alden said, pointing to Cam. He broke into the building using a stolen key and attempted to assault me. He's also carrying illegal substances in his left jacket pocket. The officers approached Cam, one of them reaching for his pocket despite his protests. The officer pulled out a small bag of pills, raising an eyebrow. Care to explain this, sir? The officer asked. Cam looked from the drugs to Alden, his face pale. This isn't over, he said as the officers handcuffed him. Yes, Alden replied as they led Cam away. It is. After the police left, Toby turned to Alden. You okay? I will be, Alden said. And for the first time in months, he believed it. The coffee shop was quiet in the afternoon lull. Alden sat at a corner table, laptop open but untouched. He watched as Raya moved behind the counter, efficient and graceful. When her shift ended, she came to his table, a fresh cup of coffee in hand. Mind if I join you? Please, Alden said, closing his laptop. So, Raya said, sitting down, I heard about what happened. The guy who broke in. Alden raised an eyebrow. News travels fast. Small building, Raya shrugged. Marlene told me. She's quite the information hub. I'm discovering that, Alden said with a small smile. Are you okay? Raya asked, her expression serious. That must have been scary. Not scary, Alden said. Just necessary. The last piece falling into place. Raya studied him over her coffee cup. You planned it, didn't you? You knew he would come. I suspected, Alden admitted. He's predictable. Selfish people usually are. That's a bit cynical, Raya said, but there was no judgment in her voice. Maybe, Alden agreed. But I'm working on it. Good, Raya said. Because not everyone takes. Some people build. The words settled around them, comfortable and true. They sat in silence for a moment, drinking their coffee, the afternoon light casting long shadows through the windows. I have a dog now, Alden said suddenly. Cam's dog, actually. From a vet. You adopted your ex-wife's boyfriend's dog. Raya asked, her eyes wide. That's either the most compassionate thing I've ever heard or the most elaborate revenge. Maybe a bit of both, Alden admitted. He's a good dog. Deserved better than he got. Most beings do, Raya said softly. Dogs, people. Their eyes met, and something passed between them. Not romance, it was too soon for that. But understanding. Possibility. Would you like to meet him? Alden asked. The dog, I mean. Raya smiled, warm and genuine. I like that very much. As they left the coffee shop together, Alden felt something he hadn't experienced in a long time. Hope. The first signs of spring were appearing in Spokane. Tiny green buds on the trees. Longer daylight hours. A sense of renewal that Alden felt echoed in his own life. 3 months since Christmas. 3 months of rebuilding. Of rediscovering who he was when he wasn't catering to Nessa's demands. When he wasn't paying for a lifestyle. When he wasn't being used, that he walked the dog Max. He named him around the park, enjoying the crisp morning air. Max trotted beside him, his leash loose, his trust in Alden complete. Beautiful dog, a voice called from a nearby bench. Marlene sat there, bundled against the morning chill, a book in her lap. Thank you, Alden said, approaching her. Mind if we join you? Please do, Marlene said, patting the bench beside her. I've been watching you too. He's devoted to you. The feeling is mutual, Alden said as Max settled at his feet. How are things? Marlene asked, her directness refreshing. With the ex-wife situation? Quieter, Alden said. After Cam's arrest, she's kept her distance. Good, Marlene nodded. Though I imagine she's not doing well. Alden considered this. He hadn't thought much about how Nessa was coping. Hadn't wanted to. I wouldn't know. I would, Marlene said. My niece works at that marketing firm downtown. The one where your ex tried to get hired. They turned her down flat when they found out about her situation. What situation? Alden asked, curious despite himself. Marlene hesitated. You haven't heard? It's all over social media, apparently. That boyfriend of hers. Cam, Alden supplied. Yes, him. Seems he had an extra source of income. He was posting intimate content online. Without permission. A cold feeling settled in Alden's stomach. He posted videos of Nessa. Marlene nodded grimly. From what I hear, yes. She found out when someone recognized her and sent her the link. Alden sat back, processing this. He had wanted revenge. Had wanted Nessa to face consequences. But this was a violation he wouldn't have wished on anyone. Not even her. He started, unable to find the right words. Terrible. Marlene finished for him. No matter what she did to you, no one deserves that. They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of the revelation hanging between them. Does this change how you feel? Marlene asked finally. About her, I mean. Alden thought about it. Did it change things? Did it make him want to reach out to her? To offer comfort or support? No, he said honestly. I still don't want her in my life. But I wouldn't wish this on her. Marlene patted his hand. That's called growth, dear. Finding the line between justice and cruelty. Understanding that people can hurt you deeply, and you can still wish them basic human dignity. Max stirred at Alden's feet, sensing the shift in mood. Alden reached down to scratch behind his ears. I should get going, he said, standing up. Work calls. Of course, Marlene said. But remember, healing isn't linear. It's okay to feel complicated things about complicated people. As Alden walked away, leading Max toward home, he found himself thinking about Nessa for the first time in weeks. Not with anger or pain, but with a distant sort of sadness for everything that had been lost. The apartment had transformed over the past few months. Gone were Nessa's decorations, her clutter, her presence. In their place, Alden had created something new, something that felt like him. Bookshelves lined one wall, filled with volumes he'd always wanted to read, but never had time for. A new couch comfortable rather than stylish. Max's bed in the corner. And most recently, plants. Small ones at first. A cactus that required minimal care. Then a few hardy potted varieties. Now tomato seedlings in containers on the balcony, reaching toward the sun. Alden watered them carefully, checking the soil with his fingers the way Raya had shown him. Growth required attention. Patience. Care. His phone buzzed. A text from Toby. Court date set for Cam. Prosecutor wants you to testify. Alden texted back. I'll be there. Another buzz. This one from Raya. Movie night still on? I'm bringing popcorn. A smile touched his lips as he replied, absolutely. Max is excited to see you. Setting down the phone, Alden looked around his apartment. His home. For the first time in years, it felt like a place of peace rather than tension. Of possibility rather than limitation. The doorbell rang, and Max raced to the door, tail wagging. Too early for Raya. Alden opened it to find a delivery person holding a small package. Alden Kincaid? The delivery person asked. That's me, Alden said, taking the package. After signing for it, Alden closed the door and examined the box. No return address, just his name and address in unfamiliar handwriting that he opened it carefully. Inside was a letter. The paper was heavy, expensive. The kind Nessa used to buy for thank you notes she rarely wrote. Alden stared at it for a long moment. Then, without opening it, he took it to the kitchen and held it over the sink. With a flick of his lighter, the corner caught fire. He watched as the flame consumed the paper, turning Nessa's words, whatever they might have been, to ash. Some bridges needed to be burned completely. Raya's apartment was smaller than Alden's, but warmer somehow. Plants everywhere. Books stacked on every surface. Art on the walls, not expensive pieces like Nessa had preferred, but things that clearly meant something. Student work from the children Raya tutored on weekends. Photos of places she'd visited. They sat on her couch, the remains of dinner on the coffee table between them. Max lay on the floor, contentedly chewing a bone. So, Raya said, refilling their wine glasses. Big day tomorrow, I guess, Alden said. The court date for Cam's trespassing and drug possession charges had arrived quickly. I just need to tell the truth. Are you nervous? Raya asked. Alden considered the question. Not about testifying. More about seeing him again. Being reminded of everything. Raya nodded, understanding. Reminders can be tough. Even when you're healing. I thought I'd be over it by now, Alden admitted. It's been almost 5 months. That's not how it works, Raya said gently. Betrayal like that, it leaves marks. Scars. They fade, but they don't disappear. Alden took a sip of wine, letting her words sink in. How long did it take you? With your ex? To be completely over it? Raya laughed softly. I'll let you know when it happens. But to be okay? To feel like myself again? About a year. She reached over and took his hand. But everyone's different. There's no timeline for healing. Her hand was warm in his. Small but strong. Nothing like Nessa's, with her manicured nails and expensive lotions. Raya's hands were real. Working hands. Honest hands. Thank you, Alden said, squeezing her fingers gently. For being here. For understanding. That's what friends do, Raya said. But there was something in her eyes that suggested the possibility of more. Someday, when they were both ready. Friends, Alden repeated, the word feeling right. For now, the courtroom was smaller than Alden had expected. Less dramatic than the ones on TV. Just a room with wooden benches, a judge's bench, and the weight of consequences hanging in the air. Cam sat at the defendant's table, his once confident posture now slumped. He looked smaller somehow, less threatening. When Alden was called to testify, he walked to the witness stand, feeling Cam's eyes on him the entire way. He swore to tell the truth, then sat, facing the prosecutor. Mr. Kincaid, the prosecutor began. Can you please describe the events of February 15th? Alden recounted everything clearly. The threatening phone calls that had preceded Cam's visit. The break-in. The confrontation. The drugs. And had you known Mr. Braxley prior to this incident? The prosecutor asked. Yes, Alden said. He was having an affair with my then-wife. A murmur went through the courtroom. The judge called for order. Did Mr. Braxley threaten you during this encounter? The prosecutor continued. Yes, Alden said. He grabbed me by the shirt and made verbal threats. Thank you, Mr. Kincaid. No further questions. The defense attorney approached next, his expression calculated. Mr. Kincaid, isn't it true that you had a recording device ready before Mr. Braxley arrived? Yes, Alden admitted. I had received threatening messages from him. I wanted to be prepared. So you anticipated his arrival, the attorney pressed. You were waiting for him. I was prepared for the possibility, Alden corrected. And isn't it true that you had a restraining order placed against his girlfriend, your ex-wife? Yes. Some might say you've been vindictive in your actions toward Mr. Braxley and Ms. Lee, the attorney suggested. That this was all part of a campaign to punish them. Alden met the attorney's gaze steadily. I've been protective of myself. After months of deception and emotional abuse, I took legal steps to safeguard my well-being. Mr. Braxley chose to violate those boundaries when he broke in my building and threatened me. Those were his choices, not mine. The defense attorney's expression tightened. No further questions. As Alden stepped down from the witness stand, he passed close to Cam. Their eyes met briefly. Cam's filled with resentment. Alden's with nothing at all. Outside the courtroom, Toby waited on a bench. "How'd it go?" he asked, standing as Alden approached. "Fine," Alden said. "It's done." "Good," Toby said, clapping him on the shoulder. One more chapter closed. As they walked out of the courthouse, Alden felt lighter. Each step away from that room was a step toward something new, something better. Nessa stared at the screen of her laptop, her hands shaking with rage and humiliation. The videos were everywhere. No matter how many times she reported them, they reappeared on different sites. Her face, her body, her most private moments exposed for anyone to see. Cam had filmed everything, had been filming for months. And now, even as he faced charges for the break-in, these videos were his final revenge. Her phone buzzed. Another message from a stranger who had recognized her. Another crude proposition. Another reminder of her newly permanent digital footprint. She had lost everything. Her husband, her family, her friends, her reputation, and now, her dignity. The small apartment her cousin had reluctantly let her use felt like a prison. The walls closing in. The silence broken only by the constant buzz of her phone with notifications she couldn't bear to read. She opened her email, desperate for any distraction, and found an alert from a job search site. Another rejection. This one more explicit than most. Due to concerns about your online presence, we are unable to consider your application at this time. Nessa closed the laptop and buried her face in her hands. How had it come to this? How had her perfect life unraveled so completely? The answer was simple. Choices. Her choices. To lie instead of leaving. To take instead of giving. To betray instead of honor. And now she was paying the price. A price so much higher than she could have imagined. She picked up her phone and opened her contact list. It was nearly empty now. Most people had blocked her after Alden's Christmas reveal. The few who remained weren't answering her calls. Her finger hovered over Alden's name. She hadn't tried to call him in weeks. Not since the restraining order. But maybe now, in light of what had happened with the videos, he would show some compassion, some humanity. She pressed call before she could talk herself out of it. The automated message was immediate. The number you have dialed is no longer in service. Of course, he'd change his number. Cut the last possible connection between them. Nessa set down the phone. She was truly alone now. Summer arrived in Spokane with long, golden evenings and the scent of barbecues and freshly cut grass. Alden stood on his balcony, tending to his tomato plants, which had grown from fragile seedlings to robust vines heavy with ripening fruit. Max lounged nearby, panting slightly in the evening heat. Inside, music played softly from Alden's speakers, a playlist Raya had created for him, filled with songs he'd never heard before but now couldn't imagine living without. The sliding door opened, and Raya stepped out, 2 glasses of iced tea in her hands. "These are looking amazing," she said, nodding toward the tomatoes as she handed him a glass. "They're survivors," Alden said. "Stronger than they look." Raya smiled, understanding the metaphor. The best things usually are. They stood side by side, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. It had been 7 months since Christmas. 7 months of rebuilding, of healing, of growing. "I got a letter today," Alden said after a comfortable silence. "From the transit company. They approved my proposal for the new routing system." "That's fantastic," Raya exclaimed. "Alden, that's huge. Your first major project as team lead." "It feels good," he admitted, "to be recognized for my work. To know my ideas have value." "They always did," Raya said. "You just needed the space to realize it." Alden nodded, thinking of all the years he'd spent suppressing his ambitions to accommodate Nessa's needs. Her demands. Her expectations. What else? Raya asked, sensing there was more. I heard about Nessa today, Alden said. From Toby. Apparently, she's leaving Spokane, moving to Portland to stay with a cousin. How do you feel about that? Raya asked, her tone neutral. Alden considered the question, relieved mostly that she'll be somewhere else, starting over, that I won't have to worry about running into her. And? Raya prompted. And? I hope she finds whatever she's looking for, Alden said. Not for her sake, but for whoever comes after me. I wouldn't wish what I went through on anyone. Raya leaned against him slightly, her shoulder against his. That's called growth. Alden smiled at the echo of Marlene's words from months earlier. So I've been told. Inside, the music changed to a slower song. Raya set down her glass. Dance with me? Here, Alden asked. On the balcony? Why not? Raya said. It's a beautiful evening. The tomatoes won't mind. Alden set down his glass and took her hand. They moved together in the small space, slightly awkward at first, then finding a rhythm. Her head rested against his chest. His arms encircled her waist. Natural. Easy. Is this okay? She asked, looking up at him. I know we've been taking things slow. This is perfect, Alden said. And it was not rushed, not forced. Just two people finding their way toward each other after separate journeys through pain as they danced. Alden caught sight of something on his kitchen counter through the sliding door. His laptop, open to an email draft he'd been working on earlier. A response to a former colleague who had reached out about a potential new opportunity. A chance to use his skills in a different way. To grow in a new direction. 6 months ago, he wouldn't have considered it. Would have stayed in his safe, predictable job because Nessa needed the stability of his paycheck. Now, the possibilities stretched before him like an open road. No constraints, no guilt, just choice. Raya followed his gaze. What are you thinking about? The future, Alden said. It looks different than I expected. Better or worse? She asked. Alden looked down at her, at the warmth in her eyes, at the honesty in her face, at the way she saw him, really saw him in a way Nessa never had. Better, he said. Definitely better. 1 year later, Alden sat at his desk in his new office, reviewing plans for the city's updated transit system. The promotion had come through 6 months ago, along with a raise that had allowed him to start saving for a down payment on a small house. Max snoozed under the desk, having adjusted well to coming to work with Alden a few days each week. The office dog had become something of a mascot for the entire department that a knock at the door drew Alden's attention. Toby stood there, a folder in his hand. Got the final numbers for the West Side route, Toby said, entering and placing the folder on Alden's desk. Looks good. Better than projected. Actually, thanks, Alden said. I'll review them this afternoon. Toby didn't leave immediately. Instead, he settled into the chair across from Alden's desk. So, big day tomorrow, huh? Alden felt a smile tug at his lips. Yeah, nervous? Toby asked. Not really, Alden said, surprising himself with the truth of it. It feels right. Good, Toby said with approval. It is right. Raya's good people. You deserve good people. The 1-year anniversary of their first official date dinner at a small Italian restaurant downtown, both of them nervous but determined, was tomorrow. Alden had plans. Special plans that involve a small box currently hidden in his sock drawer. Don't screw it up, Toby said, but his tone was teasing. I'm not listening to sad breakup music with you again. Once per lifetime is my limit. Your support is overwhelming, Alden replied dryly. Toby laughed and stood up. Seriously, though, I'm happy for you. Both of you. After Toby left, Alden swiveled his chair to look out the window. The view wasn't spectacular, just the downtown streets of Spokane, people going about their day. But to Alden, it represented something profound. Life continuing. Moving forward. Healing. His phone buzzed. A text from Marlene. Harvest time. Bringing you some of my famous zucchini bread tonight. No arguments. Alden texted back. Wouldn't dream of it. Thank you. He set down the phone and returned to his work, but his mind kept drifting to tomorrow. To Raya. To the question he planned to ask her. To the life they might build together. not a replacement for what was lost. Something entirely new. Something better because it was built on truth rather than deception. On mutual support rather than exploitation. As the afternoon sun slanted through his office window, Alden found himself thinking of Nessa for the first time in months. Not with anger or pain or even indifference, just with a distant sort of acknowledgement that she had been part of his journey. A difficult, painful part, but one that had led him here. To this place of strength and clarity and purpose that he opened his desk drawer and took out an envelope. Inside was a single photo he'd kept from his old life. Not of Nessa, but of the apartment they'd shared, taken the day after Christmas, just after he'd changed the locks. Empty spaces where her things had been. A physical representation of the void she'd left. Alden looked at it one last time, then fed it through the shredder beside his desk. He didn't need reminders anymore. Didn't need to hold on to the past, even as a cautionary tale. The future beckoned, bright and full of possibility. And for the first time in his life, Alden was ready to embrace it with open arms and an open heart. That evening, as he left the office, Max trotting faithfully beside him, Alden's phone buzzed one last time. An email notification from an address he didn't recognize that he almost deleted it without reading, but something made him open it instead. It was brief, just a single line. Thanks for existing. Don't come. The words from Nessa's last text to him before everything fell apart. The words that had changed everything. Alden composed a reply, fingers hovering over the screen for just a moment before he began to type. You got your wish. He hit send, then turned off his phone and slipped it into his pocket. The past was finally, truly behind him. Ahead lay home. Marlene's zucchini bread. Raya coming over for dinner. Max's evening walk. The small velvet box waiting for tomorrow. Ahead lay life. Real life. His life, and it was good.